And the person I want to compliment most, I think, from this episode is Gabriel Luna as Tommy, who, of course, was featured in the original season. And he did a very good job for what he was given. And, first episode, he got a little more interaction. We saw, interaction between his wife and his son and things, a little bit with Joel. But here, like a lot of this episode, certainly the action stuff kind of rested on his shoulders. And I thought he just did a fantastic job. So much so, it's like, I kind of want to just follow a lot of Tommy now through this season. Perhaps we will, because we know that they're making a lot of changes in season 2. Some of them good and some of them not so good, in my opinion. But I really liked what they did with him, and I'm glad. Gabriel Luna, he has kind of like, outside of a particular moment, which everyone is, obviously talking about, the tragic moment, he gets the big action moment of the episode, and I really, really liked it. I want to see even more stuff, too. But yeah, Chad, let's just go ahead and jump right into this episode of Last of Us Season 2. So, to briefly recap, I'm a fan of the video games, Last of Us Part 1, I guess that's what we're all calling it right now. I think one of the best games of the previous decade of the, PS3 generation. Loved it. Kind of the crown jewel in Sony's PS3, catalog. A lot of Naughty Dog's games during that time were wonderful, of course. And I also really like, The Last of Us Part 2. I have some criticisms of it, more to do with the pacing, some of the busy work, but I didn't have a lot of issues like some people do with, like, the narrative choices in it. If anything, how they presented it, it made sense to me. I thought it was interesting. I liked it. And, again, going into season 1, I had a lot of misgivings and concerns. I was like, why the hell are you even doing this? The games are so well directed and well crafted and wonderful performances. The writing's on point, I think, for the most part. And so I don't think you're going to live up to it. And even though I feel like season 1 doesn't reach the same heights as the games, they still did a very good job. And some of the changes they actually made, I thought, worked better than the original stuff in the game, particularly when it came to the characters of Frank and Bill. Really loved that particular episode. And so going into season 2 and just knowing that it's like, all right, you're going to be covering some of the, let's say, infamous or even unpopular aspects of the Last of Us franchise. I was kind of bracing myself for that. I was not as I did not have such a dramatic reaction as other people did to the choices that were made in Last of Us Part 2. And I don't want to have to go through that period of time 5 years ago where people were just, in my opinion, being very obnoxious about it. And I also think doing certain things to just garner an audience that had already so much of a chip on their shoulder because of things that they thought were originally going to be in the game and aspects of a character that really weren't any aspects of that character to begin with. Like a lot of that stuff going in, and people made their careers on that, sadly, which I think is really, really shitty. So I'm not looking forward to going to that. But I watched the first episode, and to be honest, I was very mixed on it. I felt like a lot of great aesthetic stuff was established, obviously. There's certainly some spectacle. The budget's on full display. I thought Pedro Pascal did a great job as Joel in that episode. This was a much older Joel at this point, now in his 60s. There's just this quiet, silent rage about him. It's almost like a pressure cooker. It's about to go off any minute, but he's trying to keep it in control. Had an excellent scene with Catherine O'Hara, who makes her debut in the series as the psychiatrist. Love their scene together. Even though I was a little confused, I was like, what the fuck is Eugene? I was like, who's Eugene? I don't remember Eugene from the games. Apparently he is in the game. He's like a photograph you find. I'm like, all right. It's been a while. It's been 5 years. I don't remember that photograph. But there's some additional supporting performances that I think were quite solid. It didn't give them enough to do, but I'll actually comment more on them in a bit, because those characters, such as Gabriel Luna's Tommy, who is the younger brother of Joel, he gets a lot to do in this episode, and I think one of the highlights personally. But the things that I feel like aren't working about this particular season so far, and listen, I know this actress has gotten a lot of hate, but I feel like what's written for her and her performance so far, how she's directed, Bella Ramsey's Ellie, is just not working in this season at all. I don't understand as to why they're writing her to be so petulant and bratty and immature when the situation doesn't call for it. It just doesn't make any sense. Whereas, and I can't help but compare it to the game, where Ellie at this point in the series is wiser, more cunning, more mature. Not to say that she doesn't do things that get herself in trouble, certainly towards the middle and ending of that game, but I just don't really understand the choices they've been making with her character. And I feel like that certainly continues into this episode as well. But, what about episode 2? Because everyone's talking about it for a variety of reasons. And I'm going to tiptoe around those reasons for right now. I'm not going to do any spoilers. I might do a spoiler section in just a bit, but we're holding off on that. But I do want to compliment the things I think really work about this episode. First of all, I think episode 2 is infinitely better than the first episode for a variety of reasons. Number one is the sheer spectacle of it all. As I said, The Last of Us clearly isn't afraid to make changes, and I think for the most part, at least in this particular episode, when it comes to the action stuff, it does it very, very well. We see essentially, this isn't really a spoiler, it's in all the marketing, the siege of Jackson by the infected. And they're really, really emphasizing the infected and how they've changed over time so far in this series, that they're becoming more intelligent. There's more different types of them now. And I've liked that so far. It's one of the stronger aspects of episode 1, where Ellie had to deal with clearly a far more intelligent infected. And we see that here, where essentially the infected, which have frozen over in the snow, because they're in Wyoming, and the winters there are incredibly harsh. You have it where they've realized the infected, they're like, okay, we know there's a big group of people over here. We know, but we can't get there yet. We got to wait until our fungi mass just continues to expand. And so we're all just going to be pretty much hiding underground, hundreds and not thousands of them. And well, someone unleashes all that, and they attack Jackson, and the siege of Jackson, and that's what I'm calling it, is great. It kind of reminded me of Helm's Deep from the Two Towers in terms of how they were standing on the ramparts and what they were unleashing upon the Uruk-hai or the cordyceps in this case. I thought that was really good. The CGI, I think for the most part looked great, and they had some practical stuff in there as well. Plus, I'm very partial to, I don't know, environments in the snow or winter battles, because not only do you have to deal with the enemy itself that's coming at your gates, whether it be orcs or in this case, mutated fungus zombies, then they bite you, infect you, and you turn into a fungus zombie. You also deal with the elements too, and I like that they made the weather such a huge factor into this episode as well, how harsh the climate is here. It's both a benefit, it's both a good thing, but also could be a bad thing. And how they chose to showcase that throughout the episode, I thought was very good. But all the action in this, all the sequences, I won't spoil specific moments, but the siege itself, I thought was handled very, very well. And just directing all those people. I mean, the sheer level of extras for this type of sequences is incredible. You have to have a lot of talent to do something like that. And I feel like that came across extremely well. And the person I want to compliment most, I think, in this episode is Gabriel Luna as Tommy, who, of course, was featured in the original season. And he did a very good job for what he was given. And, first episode, we got a little more interaction. We saw, interaction between his wife and his son and things, a little bit with Joel. But here, a lot of this episode, certainly the action stuff kind of rested on his shoulders. And I thought he just did a fantastic job. So much so, it's I kind of want to just follow a lot of Tommy now through this season. Perhaps we will, because we know that they're making a lot of changes in season 2. Some of them good and some of them not so good, in my opinion. But I really liked what they did with him, and I'm glad. Gabriel Luna, he has kind of outside of a particular moment, which everyone is, obviously talking about, the tragic moment, he gets the big action moment of the episode, and I really, really liked him. I want to see even more stuff too, but love what he did. Outside of Gabriel Luna, Pedro Pascal, in the first episode, continues to be great in this season, and he has to handle some really dramatic material. He's in some very tense scenarios, to say the least, and he's able to sell that material in a great way, and it tugs at your heartstrings. And I love what he was able to do. He made a particular sequence in the Last of Us 2 game his own in this episode, which is saying something, because it's such a powerful, infamous moment from video games in general. So really like what they did with him. So Pedro Pascal continues to do a great job. The spectacle of the series is really on full display. You can tell they have a lot more money, and I like what they're doing with the infected. They're clearly having a lot of fun playing around with them now. And I think they're going to continue to do more stuff with the infected later on. I think they even said as much. They're going to add stuff that originally wasn't in the games and is in the game. So that's going to be fun to see. But there are some things that are just not working about this season so far, and I hate to harp on her, but Bella Ramsey's Ellie she's just not working. Continue having her be this bratty, petulant child who is just so immature, just comes across so mature in everything that she does. And it also just doesn't help that, Bella Ramsey just looks so young. Like, she doesn't look like she's aged at all from season 1. This is supposed to take place like years later, years after the events of the original season. And she looks exactly the same, even though the other characters look older. And so it's just weird. So when she's interacting with people that are supposed to be of her age, in this, whether it be with Dina or with the character, oh god, you know what? I forgot his name, but the former boyfriend of Dina. I'll have to remember in just a bit. But like, wait, who's great, by the way? I got to give that actor a shot. I think he does a really great job in this episode. Jesse. Thank you, Jesse. I think Jesse does a really great job. The thing is, though, it's like all of them are acting as you would expect them to act given the circumstances and like the fact that they live in a post-apocalyptic environment and they all have to grow up fast. But for whatever reason, Ellie has not. And it just doesn't make any sense, especially when you compare her to her video game counterpart where she definitely matured and became, wiser and more cunning and smart. It's just, I just don't understand it. And that continues on. Like, she's just fucking goofing off in this episode. It's like, what do we, I don't understand. This choice doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. And honestly, like, every time that her character was on screen, I was like, why, what are we doing? Well, can we get back to, like, literally anyone else? Can we get back to Pedro Pascal's, Joe? Can we get back to Gabriel Luna's Tommy instead? Because they're the people that are actually carrying this show, and she's just not. And I think she's just miscast. Like, I think I went along with it in season 1. It's like, okay, she's younger, and they made her a little more petulant. But I was like, okay, I kind of get because of the circumstances of it all. It's like, makes sense. But at this point, I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense anymore. and it's aggravating me. And like, I'm supposed to, especially like at the end of this episode, I'm supposed to totally be like feeling for her and caring about her. And I'm kind of not, like, at all. I feel like there's a disconnect now because of how they've written her. And that's frustrating. And the other thing that I think is not working, which is concerning because Bella Ramsey's Ellie and this character, they're going to be carrying the rest of the show on their shoulders, essentially. Caitlin Dever, who, of course, everyone has said for years should have been cast as Ellie to begin with, and apparently she did read for a Last of Us movie years ago. And maybe in hindsight, it's what they should have done. And even, like, looking at her in this episode and just how she sounds, it's like, God, you look like Ellie. You sound exactly like Ellie. You're kind of acting more Ellie-like than Bella Ramsey ever has. It's just kind of like, wow, I think they made a mistake. They really did make a mistake in the casting process. I mean, she sounds like Ashley Johnson, voice character, which they actually did a little homage to Ashley Johnson in this episode, which I thought was really nice. But the other aspect that's just not working for me is Caitlin Dever as Abby. They are definitely choosing to show more of Abby earlier than they did in, like, the games, in terms of why she's doing what she's doing, the big reasons and everything. But like, each of these 2 episodes, they start, like, really awkwardly to me. Where the first episode started where it's like, boom, we're immediately with Abby and her group after, Joel stormed the hospital and killed all those people. We found out, exactly what he did and everything. And it was like, wait, what's going on? It's like, even though I know who this character is, it's just very awkward. And they do the same thing here with her character, except it's like, okay, it's after the events of Joel and Ellie in the hospital, and she's going down this hallway, and this isn't really a spoiler because this happens literally in the first 2 minutes, and suddenly she's like, oh, what happened? And she suddenly, like, hears a voice, he's dead, right? And she turns around, and it's herself, and it's like, it's her more adult self talking to her past self, and it's like, oh, you realize this is like a nightmare dream sequence, which again has been done in movies and television shows and animation, like, across the board for decades, if not a century. But I don't know, it didn't really work for me at all. It just kind of came across awkward. And then she goes, bah! And then she wakes up, and it's like, okay, all right, we got to deal with this thing, okay? So every time they reintroduce us to Abby, every single episode, it's just kind of been awkward. You know, it just feels like, and I know what they're doing. I know exactly what they're trying to do. I did not have as big an issue with Abby as like other people did, like in the game. Like, you know, it's like, I get why she did what she did. Like, I get it. I love Joel, but I get it. Here it's like, okay, we really got to like get people on board with like the Abby character. So we're going to kind of I understand. I totally can see the pitch meeting, them writing on the fucking dry erase board. Every episode is going to start with an Abby moment. That's how we're going to do it. And we're going to get audiences used to it. I just feel like these moments have not been executed very well. And they also choose to do more with Abby in this episode than they, in terms of like the section they are from the games that they're adapting. And what they end up doing with her, I kind of just, it makes me go like, oh, well, she's a monster. Even before she does a certain thing later on, she does something so foul in this episode that causes a lot of destruction and a lot of death. And it's like, all right, well, fuck this character. You know, whereas in the games that it does not happen that way. And so that was also like a weird choice where it's like, okay, we're going to try to make this character a little more appealing, you know, get people like on her side, or at least understand more of her, you know, perception of events. But then they have her do something, or she causes something that literally is, in my opinion, far worse than what she ends up doing in the latter half of this episode. And so that, even though it leads to a very impressive and cool action sequence, I'm just like, well, fuck her. You know, at this point, it's like everyone has every single right to go after her now, after what she did, after what she caused. So, yeah, I mean, she just does something so foul before the thing that everyone is, you know, quote unquote angry at her about, that I'm now always going to see her as a villain. So it's just, some of the changes I think this season have been good, but then a lot of the choices just really aren't working for me at all. And of course, you know, how do they handle the infamous sequence that I'll tiptoe around, of course. I don't know. It's fine. It was fine. I think, I'll tell you what, like the person that was carrying that entire sequence was Pedro Pascal. When Abby or when Caitlin Deaver's Abby confronts Pedro Pascal's Joel, I thought, through not saying anything, through saying very little, which is so crazy because it's also the same thing in the last episode where it's just his reactions and how he's carrying himself. He absolutely kills it, and he does it again in this particular episode by, I don't know, being a little more quieter and somber, and just having that rage just constantly boil, like that pressure cooker I described earlier. That's what he is. It just really worked for me. And so, you know, when the final moment happens, it's like, okay, well, I expected this to, you know, happen, obviously, having played the games and things. But I thought Pedro Pascal really carried that sequence, unlike Caitlin Deaver, who, honestly, I think goes on for a little too much. So much so that even Joel's like, all right, can you just fucking finish already? Which I thought was very funny. Which I thought was great. Kind of cut the tension. She's like, I'll fucking finish. And she brings out a golf club. So, yeah, this episode, it's better than the first one. The money's on full display. The spectacle looks great. Gabriel Luna gets a really great moment, a really great sequence in this episode. So much so that I want to see more of him now. I thought he was very good. Pedro Pascal continues to kill it. He feels very comfortable as his character, an older version of this character, but the stuff that's not working is the stuff that hasn't worked since episode 1. I'm sorry, but that's Bella Ramsey as Ellie. I mean, there's little shots of her, like, standing next to other people that are of her age, and they're, like, 2 feet taller than her. I'm just like, she looks like she's 12 in all the scenes, even though she's supposed to be, like, 20 years old. I'm like, guys, come on. And then, yeah, Caitlin Deaver, how they're writing Abby right now is just not really working for me at all. It feels like they're like, all right, we're going to try to get the audience on her side, but then they're having things, she's doing new things that are actually even worse. So it's very odd. It's very odd. Maybe we'll see. Maybe it'll all come together by the end of this season's episode, which I think there's only 7 episodes this season, which is kind of wild because they're splitting. I imagine The Last of Us Part 2 into 2 seasons. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I continue to be mixed on The Last of Us Season 2. I feel like this episode's better, but it's got some issues. But what about you guys? I'm very curious. You know, Did you have as many issues as you do with this episode? Though there are certain moments that really stood out to you, thought were great. Did you love the episode? Do you think you're enjoying the changes? You know, are you liking Bella Ramsey as Ellie? You're liking Caitlin Dever as Abby? Let me know. What about you, Chad? How do you feel about The Last of Us Season 2 so far? Again, I'm pretty mixed on it. I do like Jesse. Oh, you know what? Hold on. There's also, and they make another change. Listen, I hate to keep harping on Bella Ramsey as Ellie, but I feel like because she looks so young that they can't put her into certain scenarios, specifically sexual scenarios. So there's a moment in the game that they adapt for this episode, specifically, and I don't. If you didn't play the game, put your fingers in your ears. But Ellie and Dina have sex at one point. They have sex at one point, and they're like smoking weed, and it's in this like weed den. They change it where it's not Ellie and Dina that go and do that. It's actually Ellie and Jesse. They don't have sex or anything. It's nothing like that. But that scene then is them like taking shelter in this like weed farm essentially, and Ellie just goofs off and stuff. And I was like, well, why make a change? And I really do feel like they're like, we can't really put Bella Ramsey in a sexual situation because she looks like she's 12 years old, So yeah, it's just another case of, I think, just Bella Ramsey honestly being really miscast as his character. It's just not working.
5 minutes later.
All right, this will be brief spoilers for The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2. So if you do not want to hear them, then I ask you to mute the stream and maybe don't look at the chat, mute the chat. And there will be no more spoiler discussion once I click off of spoilers. So once that's gone, you can come back, okay? So honestly, really, I mean, yes, the big thing that everyone's talking about, obviously, is the death of Joel. And again, I thought Pedro Pascal, like how he handled that material, how he's directed his performance overall, I thought was great. I love because Caitlin Dever's Abby, she fucking monologues, and I usually love a monologue, but I'm just like, all right, get to the fucking point. Like, come on, let's go. And Joel straight up is like, shut the fuck up and finish it already. I love that. That made me laugh. I thought that was hilarious. And she's like, fuck you, dude. He's like, bah, 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 bah. I thought that was very funny. I like that moment quite a bit. And it kind of, I mean, yes, it plays out in a similar way, in a similar fashion as it did in Last of Us Part 2. The golf club, she used the golf club more just to fuck up his leg. And then a lot of the golf club stuff is like him whacking him on the head with the golf club. Like they don't show that. The camera like pans away and we're focusing on something else. And eventually when we return to it, it's just her like punching the shit out of his head. And then pretty much stabbing him with the shaft, which I don't remember that in the game. Is that in the game? I don't remember that. I didn't look at the death scene from Last of Us Part 2 in a while, so I don't know. But I guess she broke the golf club over his head at some point, snapped in half. And then she stabs into his neck, and he essentially bleeds out. And then, then, Bella Ramsey's Ellie comes in, and she's, begging her. It's like, please don't, get up, Joel, and everything, which I do like that. I like, get up, Joel. And then she gets kicked in the fucking stomach by that one guy, and then she crawls over to him and stuff, and they eventually bring him his body, this is kind of like, I forgot about this. Did they drag him back in the original game? I think I don't remember because they wrap him up in a bunch of blankets and they tie him and they drag him back to the snow. It's like, fuck, that sucks. And like she's looking back and forth, like making sure his body's still there, but she probably doesn't like the fact that he's being dragged back, right? You can. So that's the big moment. That's the big moment. But honestly, the moment that I want to talk about more than anything is Abby's. So her and her group are there, and her group are like, we do not want to do this. We're like, they're already like, we are not on Team Abby. She's going to get us all fucking killed. Like, this is just not good. And so, like, the leader of the group, I forget his name is Owen. I think it's Owen. Because he's like, don't worry, Abs. I got a plan. You go out and fucking patrol or do whatever the fuck you want to do. And she's like, yeah, I'll go and patrol. She's like, I'm fucking cold the whole time. And then, and then the group is like, so you don't have a plan, really? He's like, no, I got a plan. My plan is to convince Abby to abandon this stupid fucking plan that she's got. We can head back to Seattle, which I thought was very funny. But, Abby does come upon, Joel. But what happens is, as she's basically observing these two people, she ends up causing essentially a massive disaster where she fucking tumbles down a goddamn mountain and right into the nest, right into like this giant mass grave of fungus zombies, essentially, who all look frozen over. But we learn later in the episode, or before, that this is like a facade. It's like a trap door, essentially. And that the mass on top, they are dead, but they're pretty much keeping the giant fucking army of cordyceps zombies, fungus zombies warm and alive. And so they sense, like, who the fuck's that on our trap door? And they all burst out, and they chase after her ass. But the zombies, they realize, like, oh shit, there's a much bigger target here than just a bunch of. Then good sequence too, where Abby is running and she's under this chain link fence, and the zombies are trying to get at her. It's very well done. Like, all the spectacle in the episode's great. And then Joel, much like he did in the original part 2, he saves her. And even though they change it where Dina's with him or whatever, but then they get out of there and stuff. And then Abby's like, I'm gonna fucking trick him, and gets him back to her group. And then what ensues. But Abby then causes this giant, massive horde to essentially attack Jackson because she woke them all up, and they assault it. It's a great action scene. It's like something out of Helm's Deep. However, her actions caused the death of hundreds of people. Like, hundreds of people die horrifically. And that then makes me go like, oh, well, fuck her. And so I'm like, I don't think, whereas as in the original part 2, I'm like, what? I can be on her side. Like, I wasn't one of those people who was like, yeah, fuck Abby, she fucking killed Joel. Joel's like, listen, I understood, like, the cycle of revenge, and it, did that horrible thing, but she does something that, in my opinion, is, like, just really, really terrible. And so I'm like, yeah, but fuck her for what she did, and she's going to get her comeuppance, or you want her to get her comeuppance now. And so it's just weird that, like, the showrunners, they're like, okay, we want people to understand Abby more and her perspective on things, but you inevitably have her do something that makes me go, oh, nah, fuck this bitch. And so I'm just like, okay, this is weird. It was just a weird choice. And so now I'm just like, yeah, kill her, I don't care. That's fine with me if you want to kill her, but it's not funny enough. It's not for the reason everyone else wants her to die. It's for this other reason where I feel like it's caused a lot more pain. So I don't know, that choice was just very odd to me. It was like, okay, all right, we'll see. What do you guys think of those two big moments in the episode, which I would say are the two big moments? No, it's not in the game, and she whacked him in the head. Gotcha. Yeah. Now you brownie, dude. Just a thwack. Just the whack. Good to see you, Naya. Fucking on one pump. He showed up. He does look like a one pumper too, Naya. He does look like he was like, but he'll talk shit about Abby behind her back and stuff. But then as soon as she's on the scene, he'll be like, oh, Abby. 100%. No doubt. Joel's death in the show wasn't as brutal as it was in the game. I agree. There's a lot more talking. I like the video game death better, in my opinion. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the video game death is more raw. It's just more raw and it's more shocking. I mean, to be fair, listen, I played the games. I think a lot of us play the games where we know of the games, we know of the moment. So when it happens, it's like, all right, it's hard to live up to such a infamous moment, right? And there are aspects of it that I think are well executed. Again, I think Pedro Pascal does a really good job. He does a really good job in that scene. But I don't think Caitlin Dever. I don't think. No, it wasn't as good. And I don't even necessarily blame her all that much. I just really blame the what was written for her. She was a little too talky. Let's see here. So I agree with you, Tutel. I don't think you're wrong. I have no clue who the actor is, but he looks like he might have played a douchebag in some CW show back in the day. As much as I hated Abby for what she did to Joe, I really hate Abby for what she did did Jesse. Yeah. No, I haven't started season 2 yet. I only made it to the Sam and Henry. God damn it, Naya. There's spoilers up. Spoilers. You know what happens. You know about Owen. That is a good scene. What do you think of season 1 so far of Last of Us, Naya? Season they want you to think Abby's a villain of this season, which I think it was unnecessary why she did what she did, in my opinion. Yeah, Yeah, nice is laughing the cast. Not gonna harp on Bella Ramsey and proceeds to give her the beats. Yeah, they really do. They beat the hell out of her. Here for Naya to react to shows up at episode 7. Yeah, I like it a lot. That's good. I like the first season too, Naya. Did the third episode make you cry? It made me cry. I cried twice in that episode. That sweet, sweet love between Frank and Bill. I was like, hell yeah, I'm all about it. That's still my favorite episode of the series so far. And again, it's very, very different from the games. Like, the characters Frank and Bill are technically in. Well, Bill obviously is in The Last of Us, but Frank's like, he is there, but he's not exactly a character. But what they choose to do with them and change, I thought was beautiful. And you can just watch that episode like without having seen anything else and still like really fucking like it a lot as a standalone. It was cute or whatever. You liked it. If you're saying it was cute or whatever, that means you crying. You were crying tears of sadness. That's right. Now this is if they were brother fuckers, and that would have been different. That would have been very, very different. I wasn't expecting him to already be. I know. I was so sad when that happened. I was like, oh shit. Oh, man, it was so beautiful. And I'm so glad they didn't show, like, the dead bodies either. I thought, it's very tasteful, because they could have. They could have done that, and they didn't. I was like, thank you. They just showed the open window. It's like, very nice. Very classy, in my opinion. Good episode. Will the season 2 have an episode on the same level? I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, chat, I want to see Goop. You want to see him old Goopy? Because they've been there a while. I bet they were there a while. And so they just kind of formed like one goopy mass eventually. Oh, God. Hello, Daryl McCoy. Good to have you. I think I saw Vanji earlier, too. Oh, crap. Yeah, Last of Us, chat. So those are my spoiler thoughts on the episode. I thought better than episode 1, but I'm still having issues with it. But I'll keep watching. I think I'll return to this series again towards the end of the season. Yeah, because I don't know what else, unless there's something big that really happens, like, oh, fuck, or there's a moment that I really want to talk about with you guys. I think that'd be fun.